Okay. So, the photo that I chose to talk about is a photo by Larry Clark from his book Tulsa. This is one of my favorite photo books. It's one of the few that I actually own, although it's at my mom's right now. But yeah, I was initially struck by Tulsa because of its raw subject matter and kind of the stuff that it deals with. The book mainly focuses on Clark's friends living in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and their struggle with drug use, and it leaves very little to the imagination. Like, it shows very graphic scenes of drug use, sex, violence, kind of all these things that I'd never really seen in photography before, or yeah. I couldn't and still can't really get over the beauty that Clark seems to capture in his photos, and the contrast that those moments have with like the harsh reality that Clark is trying to depict. I had heard of Larry Clark after watching the movie Kids, which is equally dark in terms of subject matter, but also very, very real in terms of the characters portrayed in the film. I guess that's what resonates most with me in his work. For lack of a better term, like the unflinching realness depicted in his photos, the kind of stuff most people don't really want to see. And I think photography that deals in subject matter like that, I tend to gravitate towards. After looking through Tulsa a few times, this photo is the one that comes to my mind whenever I'm reminded of the book. It's of Clark's friend who's lying down, he's smoking a cigarette, and holding an infant. The perspective Clark uses makes it appear as if he's standing like directly above the subjects, which kind of gives it, I think, a little more visual weight. Clark's friend is looking away from the camera, his face is shrouded in shadow. However, the child he's holding is looking directly into the camera, is unblinking, and has this sort of like 1,000-mile stare to it. Sorry, I got something in my eye. I'm always struck by the child's gaze in this photo. It seems very knowing, and almost desperate, as if it's totally aware of all the ugliness around it, even though it's a baby. I feel especially sad when I realize that the same child we see in this photo is being lowered into a tiny coffin by a priest only a few pages later in Clark's book. It's not specified how the child died, but one would assume having addicts as parents probably played no small role in its demise. I think what engages me most about this photo is its weird resemblance to Renaissance paintings, or paintings of the Virgin Mary holding the baby Jesus. Maybe it's just like the shadows, or the white cloth, or the very peculiar expressions on both subjects' face, but I think of this almost as Clark's own rendition of the Virgin Mary as seen in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I think this photo, like a lot of Clark's works, points out the sublime beauty that can be found in all aspects of life, even the ugly ones, especially the ugly ones. I think it's funny how this body of work was initially received, too. One review called it a devastating portrait of American tragedy. But I don't really think of it that way. I think of it more as a portrait of an American reality, but one that we tend to ignore or otherwise subvert. Robert Longo said in his artist project for the Met that as an artist you're a reporter of the time you live in, and I truly think that good art, especially photography, tends to draw from the times we live in, or at least when I think I've taken a good photo, it's usually of a particular era in my life, and holds a lot more meaning that way. I think because of this I tend to gravitate towards work that is candid like Clark's is, whether that be street photography or pictures of friends. I think it's made me more aware of the beauty in my own life, even when things are bad. I like the idea of being both a participant and an observer in a scene too, which is part of the reason why Tulsa was such a big moment in photography, is because Clark used sort of his into this scene, or the fact that he was part of this scene, to document it and observe it, which I think is interesting and something that I think we should all do more of. Yes, some of my best work, I think, is done in this way, whether it's on the street or where other people tend to look away, or at a party with my friends, because you just can't really recreate those moments, those like beautiful imperfections, and I think once they're gone, they're only good for memories. So it's important to have the wherewithal to capture those when they come around. So yeah, I hope that gives you a little more insight into the way I look at this photo by Larry Clark.